I hear you had a great conversation with Jim Osmond and Justin Peters. Have you changed your stance on anything after speaking with them?
First, to confirm, we had a great conversation, and I respect them. And in their integrity, after our conversation, Justin pulled the video from his YouTube channel, where he and Jim had an extended conversation about me, and we've exchanged books. Jim and I have since. I've just glanced through some of them. I've been really tied up with some projects, but I'm eager to read first the one on Psalm 73 and the prosperity of the wicked, and he's going to be reading some of my stuff as time permits. No, my stance didn't change on anything. However, my understanding of why they had certain concerns was enhanced, and how they see certain things. I mean, Justin and I have interacted some in the past. This is the first time interacting with Jim in this setting, aside from a one brief call to my show. So it was really useful to spend the time with them. It was helpful for me. I think it was helpful for them as well. I'll just give you like one case in point. So years back, I used to play clips from Benny Hinn teaching, you are gods, little gods, that kind of thing, and saying, look at this error. And then someone sent me some stuff. Oh, he repented of that. Here's what he said. He doesn't teach it anymore. I thought, oh, okay, that's good to hear. I didn't know that, but I don't follow his ministry. That's not what I do. In other words, Justin really has a focus to follow certain ministries and expose where he feels there's error. So I do some of that, but that's not the main thing that I'm focused on. So anyway, then someone I know, a grad from our school, had gotten to know Benny Hinn, and he said, Dr. Brown, he's really not the way he's represented. You should really get to know him. And, he would agree with a lot of your message about repentance and holiness. And I thought, okay, let's see what happens. And then right after that, I get an invitation to appear in his TV show, which in retrospect, I shouldn't have done. It did more harm than good. But I thought, well, let me get to know him for myself. And he wants me to talk about Jesus being the Messiah in the Old Testament. And I asked, okay, can we talk about hyper grace? I've got a new book out. It's really important. You've got a massive audience on TBN. You've got a major teacher on TBN who's teaching hyper grace. So let me get to the TBN audience. I'll take some hits for it, but let me get to that audience. Anyway, it turns out we did 5 days of shows. The shows themselves, if you watch them, there's a lot of edifying content. Before the show, he was talking to me about Hebrew and the word, and reading to me in Hebrew and having me check, what he was doing and all this and so on. And if you didn't know anything about him on any level, you'd think this guy really loves the Lord. He's got a burden to see the sick healed. He loves the word. And the interviews themselves were great. Well, it turns out the Hyper Grace interview never aired. Instead of that, they aired a fundraising video from a guy whose fundraising methods are despicable. So I wrote to him afterwards and said, hey, I appreciate you having me on, all this. I remember our time before the show, but look, man, you gotta, and Justin had sent me some stuff, some really bad stuff that was on Benny Hinn after me. So I wrote to him and said, you got to deal with this, man. This is corrupt. This is bad. You got to bring reformation here. So in other words, the very first issue that came up after I was on a show, I immediately confronted him in a very, very strong letter. Well, Jim didn't know the history, and he's thinking, why am I just confronting him over fundraising? What about everything else? Well, that's the first thing that happened once I got to know him. So just kind of getting some of the background there is helpful. But nothing's changed in my view. In other words, I'm 100% sure, based on the Bible, that the miraculous gifts continue to today, and that God's doing these wonderful things around the world. And I'm 100% convinced that there's some really real flakiness in the charismatic movement that we have to keep dealing with and correcting and fixing. Just like 1 Corinthians, Paul dealt with all the error in the Corinthian church, but acknowledged that the gifts of the Spirit in their midst were real. But it was a great conversation. I would say this last thing. My interaction with men like that, who have the integrity to sit with me, and I'll listen to them and they'll listen to me. That's in my head even more when I'm being asked questions. The type of questions they ask, my listening audience almost never asks. In other words, they're interested in a million other things and want to talk to me about a million other things. Like the these questions here almost never come up on my show. If they do, I take the call and answer it. But talking to them reminds me of to keep in mind how bad things are in certain circles, and to make sure that I remember that. And going through Justin's video where he put a lot of stuff together, different clips and things. Because I don't watch the shows, that was very helpful for me to see that certain things were even more extreme than I was aware of. So sorry for the long answer, but it comes up so much in these circles. But I appreciate these brothers, and I told them, hey, look, I'm an ally, not an enemy. We have some strong differences on some fundamental issues, but you see something you think should come to my attention, let me know.
Excellent. And maybe it was long, but it was necessary, and I think that people need to understand your heart behind things. And the only way to do that a lot of times is with a long answer.
Yeah, but sorry if it's too long. But anyway, trying to be helpful.
I had a personal question. Do you have any sort of communication or relationship with Costi Hinn, his nephew?
We did a few years back. His book came out. We talked by phone, had a really nice talk. He wanted to bring me on his show, and even let folks in his church know about what I was doing, and thought that my voice would be very helpful to them. And I was going to have him on my radio show and let him share his story and interact with it. He sent me the book that he and a colleague had written. I went through it line by line, thought a lot of good in it, but there are other areas that need to be corrected theologically and in some other ways. And we were supposed to interact further there. And then he wrote to us, or whatever, said he wasn't doing any shows for some months, and we've been out of touch since. So we had a nice start, and I think both of us would warmly, get back in touch today, but it just hasn't happened.